Hey everybody, welcome to Dawn Osborne, Fearless Mindset Coaching. The last podcast I gave you the rules to rise. I gave you 1 to 5 keys. Today I'm going to give you the remaining 5 keys for the rules to rise. In today's podcast, I'm going to give you the remainder 5 rules to rising. All right, so you're like, rising out of what, Dawn? Out of the ashes, out of pain, out of the past. So key number 6 is be comfortable in the unknown. And you know what? I've said this before and I'll say it again. I love change until I don't. Like, I'm one of those people. I love change when it suits me. And when change doesn't suit me, no, don't like it. All right, now I talked about, if you haven't heard it, go back to the podcast before this one and listen to where I talk about mindset, okay? So you'll get a bit more of information on understanding mindsets. But growth, people with a growth mindset, I often call this a victory mindset as well, is they are willing to grow, okay? And so in willing to grow, sometimes we have to face things that look unsafe. And when something looks unsafe, it usually means that we feel like we're under threat, all right? There is a threat around us. And often with people, if you've got a growth mindset, you're happy to face change. You're happy to go into uncertainty. You're happy to explore, and you're happy to gain commitment in something that you don't feel safe. You do feel under threat, but you're going to proceed anyway. Okay, that's my definition of fearless. Really, is we just do it anyway. We do it afraid until we remove all the uncertainty, remove all that feeling of unknowing and feeling unsafe, and we remove the threat, and we've moved into fearless. Okay, so but ultimately the first step is that we are afraid of the unknown. We don't feel safe, and we feel threatened. We feel uncomfortable. And so my number 6 is really, have the growth mindset, make a choice, because everything is a choice, right? I talked earlier about in the podcast just before this one, the first 5 keys about commanding your mind, all right? Now, if you don't, an automatic pilot will kick in, and the automatic pilot kicks in, and it's called habitual thinking, all right? You will drop into habitual thinking. If you do not take control of your mind and your thinking, your automatic pilot, your habitual thinking, the thinking that you've always done and you've never interrupted, because in order to create a habit, we have to break a habit. Okay, so part of what I do is I help people break habitual thinking, which is the type of thinking that is limiting their life. And so the fear of getting comfy with the unknown is part of me, one, helping you to break habitual thinking that's ineffective in your life, breaking cycles of thought that are really not causing you the effect in your life that you really want, and starting to move you out of a fixed, fearful, victim mindset into a victorious mindset, a growth mindset, and a fearless mindset. I mean, that's what I do. When I talked in the previous podcast about calling, I mean, this is my calling. My calling is to help people remove fear out of their life, out of their heart, out of their mind, out of their body, and get them completely set free and moving into their purpose and gaining meaning. When you've got meaning in life, trust me, happiness and peace will flow. It's when we kind of got lost along the way, and we don't know who we are, we don't know where we're going, that we don't have happiness, we don't have peace at all. Okay, so you might be uncomfortable with the unknown right now. You might be looking at your future and you are not comfortable, you're not happy with the unknown. All right. Okay, this happens when people are going through transitioning. All right, they're transitioning out of one place into another. All right, so transitioning could look like, all right, let's get real, people. Transitioning could look like I'm coming out of a relationship, out of being married, and I'm now moving into separation. Or I've been single forever, hugely independent, and now I am transitioning into a marriage. Or you could be transitioning, I've just lost a loved one, the love of my life, I am now transitioning into being alone. Or it could be, I am transitioning out of, I am 20 kilos overweight, I need to transition into getting fit and healthy. Or I could be transitioning out of illness where the doctor's given you a diagnosis and he said, okay, you need to transition into wellness, all right? Or I'm in 70, which was my scenario, I'm in $70,000 worth of debt. I needed to transition into becoming debt free. And so all of those, when you're in something, so I'm going to use my debt as an example. When I was in $70,000 debt, I knew how to get into $70,000 worth of debt. I had habitual thinking, I had a certain mindset that got me there, all right? And so in order to transition out of that, because I wanted to come out of debt and into becoming debt free, I had to learn some new stuff. I had to step into the unknown, and I had to be comfortable with learning something new and focusing on it, getting a vision, getting a mindset, and stepping into what it was going to feel like when I was out of what I was in now currently, and I was now happy with the unknown. And you know, the situation that I was in my particular scenario, you know, I was $70,000 in debt. I had 3 credit. I'd just come out of a business that was pretty full on. I was incredibly, as you know, my entrepreneurial story. You know, I had celebrity endorsements for a product I'd created. I was flying in and out of the US, New York. I had 4 babies under 4. And I was a high risk taker, huge high risk taker. Now that's fine when you're single and you're a high flyer and you can run around the world and just be whatever you want to be, and you know, but when you've got 4 babies in tow, which I did when I had 4 kids under 4, and I'm taking these massive risks, I was just, you know, doing whatever I could, and I was getting finances to support my enterprises, all right? And so the mindset that I had there was, I just need to make this work. I was driven, I was focused. When I look back now, I was actually driven by fear. Okay, when I stepped back and I found out the cause and effect of my debt scenario was I was actually driven by fear. Now I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to save that for another day to share that story with you. But ultimately, what I'm saying to you is the mindset that I had at that time I had a mindset that created debt, all right? So when I was at the end of it, the deal fell over in the States. That was due to me putting, you know, putting my finances into a super high risk situation. However, I lost it. I lost the investment that I'd made into the business, and it was pretty much my family's life savings. And so there I am, 4 babies, a broken marriage, diagnosed with an incurable disease because I'd literally burnt myself out, and the $70,000 worth of debt. So trust me, I knew the mindset it took me to get to that point. And the effects, were the effects bad? Oh yes, they were. In that moment, that was a pivotal moment for me, because all the anchors, all these kingdoms I'd created were all built on sand. They were not built on rock, I can tell you. And were they washed away in a moment? Absolutely, they were washed away at the moment. But what I need to tell you is about what was driving me in my mindset was fear. And I had to then change everything. I had to change everything, and it all started with my belief system. Everything, I had to go back and I had to rebuild everything on the rock and not the sand. And so I had some unknown ahead of me, because I'd done life, you know, I'd always done life in this way. I was always an entrepreneur. I was always wheeling and dealing. I was always hustling. I was always creating the next venture, the next product, the next the next thing. You know, I was always moving and shaking. But what had happened was I'd had all these children, and I had not transitioned out of entrepreneurship and into motherhood. I didn't do it well because I thought in my mind I could still, run at the 100 miles an hour, and I could carry these 4 babies and do what I needed to do. I could still be the high flyer entrepreneur, but no, I couldn't. So I had to transition out of this mindset into something new and unknown to me, and that was quite difficult. And obviously there were some priorities. First of all, I had to transition out of incurable disease into healed and cured, which is, I think I've shared that on a podcast. If you haven't heard it, I'm sure it's there somewhere. And then then it was some other priorities, and then it was like, okay, I need to get out of debt. And so I needed to transition my thinking and focus and my vision and my mindset into getting out of debt. So it became my priority. So I assessed my life. I did basically a renovation. I think I've talked about this in the previous podcast, soul renovation. Oh gosh, yes, I needed a soul renovation. And, it all started with me rebuilding one piece at a time. And so you might be looking at your life right now and going, okay, yep, I've got some stuff going on. I could be in debt, I could be unwell, I could be overweight, I could have a dysfunctional relationship, you could be in an abused marriage. I don't know. Whatever it is, what's happening is you need to transition out of what's not working into what's working. You need to come out of stuff that's ineffective and into stuff that's effective, out of a negative lifestyle into a positive lifestyle, out of sadness, abandonment, abuse, hatred, judgment, fear, all of that into freedom, into peace, and into happiness. All right, so what am I saying? What is number 6? Number 6 is you need to get comfortable with the unknown, because as you become comfortable with it, it's where your breakthrough is going to happen, okay? Because fear will hold you back. Fear of the unknown will hold you back. It will stop you stepping forward into the unknown. And so I'm telling you, the other side of this unsafe, unknown, uncertainty, and uncomfortable is your freedom. It is your breakthrough. And you have to step into this fearlessly, do it afraid, but you need to get comfortable with uncertain and unknown. Okay, number 7 is don't go back. Do not go back. All right, so number 7, don't go back. Because as you you get courageous and bold, and you're like, okay, I feel unsafe, I feel uncertain, I'm not comfortable, but I'm going to step forward into freedom anyway. You mustn't go back. Don't go back. You're not going back to your past, because that's where it was comfortable. And as you proceed through a transition, it does feel completely uncomfortable. You will feel completely out of sorts. You just won't feel right, and you'll want to go back to what was familiar. All right, and let me unpack this a bit further for you. So actually, there's a great analogy that will help you understand this. Is a great story in the Bible, right? And it's an amazing story about a nation of people who were enslaved by another nation of people. All right, so they were slaves, and they served them. They were unpaid, unkept, unfed. They were just slaves. They had no choice. They were just slaves. And then in the Bible, it talks about how God set them free. Okay, so they were fed. They were fed. They probably lived in little mud huts and all that whilst they were enslaved by this other nation. But, they cried out to God and said, God, we want you to set us free. And so he set them free, and they end up on a journey transitioning out of slavery and into freedom. But as the story goes, they end up, in this big, massive desert, because God was taking them to the freedom. He was taking them to another land. He was taking them to another place. But in order to get there, they had to transition through like this desert, this nothingness, this wilderness. And as they transitioned, they started to feel unsafe. They didn't feel certain. They were like, oh my gosh, we don't know where we're going. It feels like we're going to nothing. We don't know. We can't see it. We can't feel it, right? And all the people gathered, in this nation that had been come out of slavery and was transitioning into freedom, said, we want to go back. We want to go back to what we were known. Least, this is what they were saying. They were saying, least if we go back, we were fed, we had a house, we had, we knew we knew what we were doing, even though we didn't have a choice and we were in bondage and slavery. It didn't matter. It's better to know what we had than this, where we're now in the wilderness, we're now in the desert, and we have no idea where we're going. We're just transitioning. And so, and what happened was, in that moment, a lot of people wanted to go back. Like, there was this big uproar, people wanted to go back to what was familiar. They wanted to go back to what they knew. And so, because they couldn't see fully the future, they couldn't see the vision that kind of God had for them. They couldn't see what was prepared ahead of them. They were just in this wilderness and this desert. And so, is that where you're at? Do you know you need to transition out of something, but it's better for you to stay with what you know than to step into what you don't know? And, if you're in an unhappy situation, my encouragement to you is, I don't know what that it could be, and you're happy with, we've given you a few examples. You could be in debt and you need to get out of debt. And so you can need to proceed forward and learn how to get out of debt, learn how to manage your money, budget your money. You might need to do some courses. You might need to, talk to someone who knows how to handle money. For me, in that scenario, when I was, in debt and I wanted to get debt free, I had to put my eyes on my money. I had to shut down my spending. I had to stop living a luxury life that I couldn't afford. And there was just all this stuff that I was really familiar with and I really liked. But in order for me to get freedom, I needed to endure a little pain, a little bit of the unknown to get to the other side. Number 8 is you need to be defined by the image ahead of you and not what you have left behind. So you need to be defined by your future self. So capturing a vision of what you want to be, who you want to be. I want to be fit and healthy. I want to be financially secure. I want the relationship. And so in order to create that, you need to get a vision and you need to keep focusing on that vision. But what happens is sometimes we go back to familiar. Like I said in the, number 7, don't go back. But sometimes we walk backwards. We keep looking at our past. We keep looking at what's familiar, and we become stuck and we stop growing. And so the key is to take our eyes off what we don't want and put our eyes on what we do want, and then be defined by what we do want. Be defined by what we want in our future, not what we got in our past. Because I often say this to people, we are not defined by what happened to us in our past. We are defined by who God's called me to be, who God created me to be, which has purpose and meaning. But in order to get freedom, you need to transition into keeping your eyes and know that you're defined by your future self, not by your past self. Number 9 is you need to eliminate deadly emotions, all right? So deadly emotions are attached to pain and trauma or an event from the past, and you need to go hunting in your emotions and find out where they are and absolutely eliminate them. If you don't, they will control you. They will, guide. They'll be like, fueling your life, and you need to get rid of them so that so you live in that vision that you have for yourself, which is, of complete success, of you rising out of those ashes. So to rise out of the ashes, you need to get rid of the deadly emotions. And number 10 is you need to know, in order to rise, you're transitioning out of one place into another, right? Hopefully this podcast has really, drilled that into you guys, that it's okay to transition. It is okay to transition, and you are going to be safe and you're going to be okay, all right? However, you are going to hit the moment that you come into self-awareness and that you go, okay, I need to change some stuff in my life. You are going to hit resistance, all right? And when you hit resistance, it's a bit like what I just said about those, that nation that came out of bondage and slavery into freedom. They hit resistance, and the resistance hit them in the middle of the unknown. And so you need to know, oh my gosh, I'm in resistance. I'm hitting resistance right now. And that's okay, because resistance is the second step to change. The first step is denial. I don't know that I don't know. Number two is I become into self-awareness. Okay, self-awareness leads to self-management, taking personal responsibility. All of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm going to step into change, but you will hit resistance. But once you hit resistance, the step number three is that you will explore, okay? Explore possibility and explore, potential. And then you will move out of exploration into committing to change. However, what you've got to remember is that resistance is very real. You will get resistance to change, especially if you're rising. If you want to rise, it could be you're an entrepreneur and you want to rise into to growing your business. You're going to hit resistance. You'll hit it in your own mindset. You'll hit it in your body, your physical body. You will also then hit it with people around you who don't understand that that's what you want to do. No matter what if you want to change and you want to rise, you're going to hit resistance. So there you go. They are my number 5 to number 10, keys to rising out of ashes and into freedom. Now, if anything I've said in this podcast has triggered you and you go, yep, I think I've got some areas that I need help with. Look, let me help you transition out of one place into the other. It doesn't matter what it is. This is what I do. I help people, get rid of emotional pain and emotional trauma. I help people come into emotional freedom. Then I help people get a fearless mindset. I help renew their mind, and then I, help them rise into their destiny. No matter, it doesn't matter what that looks like. So if you feel like I have, triggered something, there's something going on with you that you need help with, let me help you. If that's you, what I want to do is give you a free book. Okay, so step number 1 to any of my work is I make sure people have come into complete emotional freedom. And so I have a book called Finding Fearless, and it's the starting point. I want to give it to you for free. And so I'm sure there will be a link somewhere, or there'll be a web address that we'll put in the description in this podcast. But otherwise, you need to go to www.finding-fearless.com. That's finding-fearless.com, and you can download my free book, and that will be your number 1 step to get emotional freedom. You have an amazing day, and I'll catch you on the next podcast. Bye.